Good body every morning, staring directly into the sun. It's a line from the Curious George movie, which was, I forget the producer. Really interesting animation. Moderately enjoyable. I have kids. Also, Will Ferrell, who I think is kind of insufferable at this point, but he does such a great job in that movie. Staring directly into the sun. Okay. Yesterday was an interesting day. I had someone, a new hire who was falling behind on some work. That or it was just like a spike in work, and she's picking up a lot of responsibilities right now, so I was tasked to help her out with some cutting that was taking place. And it's running a plotting machine, or a cutter plotter machine. Load the paper, orient the head, start the print job, and it cuts the sheets. And it runs, and then when it's done, run the next one. So it was a nice little exercise in workflow, and definitely a break from my normal activities. The cutter plotter machine takes for these tasks. Well, that's interesting. So the 122 keyboards actually have more cuts, but that one took 3 minutes 36 seconds, and the 104 is fewer keys and took 3 minutes 38 seconds. That's interesting. So I recorded the time on it, how long it took to cut any of the particular jobs, and just batched the work as best I could. And I was able to complete all my normal work in, almost all of it, a lot of my normal work in, 2 minute and, oh no, it was pretty close to 20 seconds. So 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 20-second intervals. Like I was in that office kicking off a job, ensuring that it got started with a kitchen timer that I used as a Pomodoro timer. Then I'd pop off to my office real quick and do like 5 items that I could do as quickly as possible before the timer was either about to go off or actually beeped to go off. And then go back to the cutter plotter just as the head came to rest, and then pop the clutch on it, pull the sheet out, and as with my right hand I'm pulling the sheet out and putting it on the pile, as my left hand is pulling the next sheet out and orienting it. Drop it on the pile with my right, pick up the sheet with my left, feed it in, align, do the head alignment, and start for the new sheet. And then it orients itself on the sheet, figures out the size of the paper, which takes 28 seconds or something like that. And while it's doing that, I prep the next job on the computer and put my mouse cursor in the position where the OK button is going to be. Because even to hit print, there were delays. So basically, the goal, and this should be your goal anyways, is if you have a machine, anytime that machine is not running, you are losing money, you are losing productivity. And that's something that I think programmers, I think most industries could benefit from, is that industrial concept. Is if I have a machine, like let's say a 3D printer. If I have a 3D printer, and that 3D printer, it might be a bad example, 3D printers are kind of a waste of time in my experience, but if I have a 3D printer, and I'm like, yeah, I'll use it to build my stuff, and I build stuff on it, 2, 3, maybe 5 times a week, most of that 3D printer's time is spent fallow. It's not doing anything, which means it's not doing anything for anyone. Whereas I could be on it's not Thingiverse. There are a number of 3D printing outsourcing companies, kind of. Like, you can say, I'm a 3D printer, send me jobs, and I can price them for you and print them for you and ship them to you. And that way you can have your 3D printer basically always running, or running as long as possible. Because anytime that 3D printer is not running, it's not making you money, it's not earning its keep, let's say. Similarly, this was something that I realized with even just my car. These are resources that we have, and particularly mechanical resources that don't necessarily need any kind of active management. So, like, what was it? Well, Airbnb, for example. You have an empty room in your house. Well, that empty room is doing nothing. It is not earning you any money. It is a resource that you have that is not doing anything. You could Airbnb out that room. Yeah, there are risks involved, and you would probably have to do lots of stuff, and you would have to absorb some bother for it. But that resource that you have could be making you money. So it's a question of what your resources are. Even my car, when I was driving for Lyft for a while, my car, and at that point I had a car payment. Pay off your car. It feels so good. Get out of debt. At that point I had a car payment. There were several months where my car paid for itself. It would pay its own car payment. That's really cool. I liked that idea. You know, my server it's a Linode server. I should probably check out the other one, Droplets. Make a Droplet, because I hear they have slightly different pricing. But my server is $10 a month, I think. Yeah, the most basic Linode package is $10 a month. And that server is, well, it's doing a lot of stuff, but among other things, it's hosting my website that has my my PayPal links on it and my products on it. That server is paying for itself. It's earning its keep. So what do you have that isn't earning its keep? The idea, or the interesting idea I had was, it's kind of, you know, I don't know, just throwing stuff out there. Your car. So your car does lots of stuff, but for the most part, your car is just kind of hanging out, especially for someone who goes to work. Like, I use this car and I commute to work, and once I get to work, it basically just sits there for 8 hours. Someone else could be using it for that time. It could be useful to other people during that period of time. And that could be, you know, my wife using it. That could be, I don't know, like some kind of Lyft service where someone else drives the car. Again, there's a lot of there's a lot of implied trust and some potential problems, of course. But the fact of the matter is, it's still there. That's the case. Technically, it's, from a resource perspective, it's inefficient to have the car doing one thing. Now, the alternative is I get a ride. Like, I get a lift to work, or I get something else to get me to work, which opens up the resource of the car. So the question becomes, how valuable is the car? How valuable is that resource? Can it repay the cost of me getting a lift to work every day? And that's an interesting question. You know, if my wife were not working or something like that, and she had, my wife were not working, if my wife were not a homemaker, if she was not staying home with the kids, like, she could keep the car, I could get a lift to work, and she could drive for Lyft all day and make money that would more than pay for the Lyft service. This is a bad example, but you know, I'm trying to give you an idea of the resources that you have. This is also kind of viewed of as inventory. The things that you have in your house are technically a form of inventory. These are assets that you have that you can leverage in different ways. Most of us, well, if you're listening to this, you might have this, probably have a computer lying around that's not doing anything. What's wrong with taking that computer that, you know, might be a little old, probably, you know, has an old Windows system on it that isn't very useful, and blowing it away, just I'm pro blowing away Windows anyways, putting a Linux box on it, putting an Apache server on it, you know, something really simple, setting it up as a LAMP server. LAMP. Moth. You can call it Moth. Moth loves LAMP. And making a little web service out of it. And, you know, you can call people up. You know, some people, I don't get this stuff, just, it falls into your lap sometimes. People are like, oh yeah, I've got an old computer, it's not doing anything. Well, cool, that's a resource that could be doing almost anything a computer could do. Like, there's really high-end stuff that's like 2% of the market that an old computer can't do, but for the most part, you've got something that's super useful. And you can set up PayPal recurring payments. You can cold call these companies, you know, small mom and pop shops, see who has really bad online presences or really bad websites, make a mock-up website. And this is actually, I probably should have started with this. Look around at weird businesses in your area, or just pick a business. And in Kentucky, it's really bad. Kentucky has really bad internet presence in these companies, because it's like word of mouth. It's like everything's more close-knit. So making a fancy internet website doesn't really help out that much. But you can find these companies that have like zero web presence and make a little simple website for them. You know, most people can learn how to make a website. A lot of people that are like, oh, how do I get started? I want to make, I want to do this, or I have some website making skills. And just cold call these companies. Like, hey, can I talk to the boss? We do doing a free promotion for a website. That seems interesting enough. I heard the F word, free. And you call the person and you say, hey, I have a mock-up up for your website. Here's what it would be. It would cost you $10 a month. Now, sign up on PayPal recurring, or you can pay $120 a year or $100 a year as a, you know, 2 months free to have your website hosted here. And we could do even just little simple Google Analytics, which is, again, just adding some JavaScript to your website. Very simple stuff. And if they go, no, I'm not really that interested, okay, fine, call the next company. Hey, I'm doing these mock-ups. Here's an example of what it looks like. Here's one for a business that's in town. You know, you're not doing extra work. That work isn't going to fallow because you spent resources, you spent time and energy on it. And that work can now be leveraged going forward into other people's, you know, to help you get other business. So eventually someone says yes, and then you host it on your website, and that can be, that's simple stuff, really. I mean, there's plenty of information on how to run Apache web services with different domains on it. And like, now that server that was doing nothing for the cost of electricity is now serving someone's website. And if you don't like the cost of electricity, get a Raspberry Pi. These are just resources that you have. Look around you right now. Look around you and say, what are these resources? I've got trash in my car. I always have trash in my car. Seltzer water can. This is recyclable. I can crush these. I can do whatever with them, or I can get them out of my way because they're actively draining me of attention. They're distracting. Visual clutter. I have a video on that. Just think about the things you have around you as resources that you can use to supplement your income. I'm preaching to myself, of course. There's probably more stuff, more little things I could be doing to diversify my income streams. Cool.